I grew up in uh, not a Catholic home, but I grew up going to a Catholic school. And with that, I ended up um, just kind of around a lot of religion. Um, I was always kind of called the Christian kid going through school. And I spent a lot of time going and trying to figure out what it was that I actually believed because I felt like I was outside of all the people I was around. I felt like I didn't really fit in. And with that, it kind of gave me an opportunity to think about what I believe. I spent a lot of time questioning where God was in my life. I equated all the hurt in my life and all of my feeling of loneliness towards being abandoned from God. Um, and when I would talk about faith and my distrust of faith, I would always go to that, like, why can't I just pray, right? If God's real, then why do I need all these rules to follow him? And in my high school years, I spent a lot of time um, kind of denouncing God, I guess is the best way to put it. And I spent a lot of time trying to prove to other people that God didn't exist. When I graduated high school, some friends and I started a band. And I just remember before shows, we would spend time just sitting around and trying to prove to one another that God wasn't real. Our singer was a heavy alcoholic. He would drink entire bottles of liquor during our shows, and he knew that something had to change in his life. So he went to church and showed up one week and was just telling us about a difference that God made in his life. And I'll never forget, I looked at him and I was like, "You're wrong." And it caused a rift between us. After a couple years, I met Tiffany. We went out on a date, and she told me that she wanted me to come to church with her. On the weekends, I was talking with my friends and telling them about how God wasn't real, and here this woman was asking me to come to church with her. I made a deal with her. I said, if you come to one of my shows and see what the bar scene is like, then I'll go to your church and we'll see what each other's lives actually look like. So that weekend, I ended up coming to her church. And I'll never forget, I walked in, I expected to see, people dressed up, and I walked in and there's a guitar on the stage, and there's, everybody dressed and acting just like I did. And I remember being so thrown off. The band came out and they started playing How Great Is Our God by Chris Tomlin. And I remember sitting there and just going, what in the world is happening right now? And so the pastor came down and started talking to us and, told us about how God wants to meet us where we are. And I remember I looked at Tiffany and I said, this is what I've been looking for. And years of convincing myself that God wasn't with me was just torn down in one day by seeing true believers. God restored my trust that everything's going to be okay, and he's going to be there no matter what, no matter how hard it is. That's really all that matters.